Okay, I'm not even waiting for this one. This one is disgusting. This is day, 84, Judges 19 through 21. Okay, this is March, I don't know, March something, 2021. Okay, so this just absolutely disgusts me. I'm not even waiting to set up in my room for this one. There was, no king in Israel. There was a Levite, which kind of, no king in Israel. This kind of disputes the other verses we've been reading, but whatever. If that was the only thing that I have a dispute with. Okay. There was some Levite. And he had a concubine. Now, when you say concubine, you're thinking of a whole bunch of people. This is just one. Now, remember the concubine. The women back then were just basically sex slaves. They had absolutely zero rights whatsoever. Right? He had taken himself a concubine, especially the concubine. You didn't even have to pay a bride price, I don't think, for the concubine, because I never read here that you had to pay a rape price for the concubine. You could just, they are just sex slaves. And they're treated as trash. I think the wives are treated badly. The concubine are treated worse. So his concubine was unfaithful to him. Okay, the dude, by definition, is a whore himself. And his dispute is that she's unfaithful to him and left him for his father's house. Okay, it didn't even say she messed around on him. It just said she left him for his father's house. Well, she's a sex slave. Yes, I would think that. Yes, I would run away. Right? Who wants to be a sex slave? Raise your hand right now. Since nobody raised their hand, I will go on. Then, so she runs to her father's house. He sets off for her. The father, it was him and the girl's father, and he spent 3 days with the father. Okay, so here's the gig. The father, apparently the woman felt safe enough to go to her father, where I can find refuge here, knowing that the father wouldn't kill her, do an honor killing, which was very common back then. Women were killed left and right in honor killings in the Bible. Christians who say, Christians don't condone honor killing. Your Bible condones it. And if you condone your Bible, then you're condoning honor killings. And we're just calling it by a different name right now. We're calling it spousal abuse. That's honor killings when it leads to death. Anyways, her husband, okay, so the father, you can tell the father tried to detain him. I don't think the father wanted to let his daughter go. The daughter probably said, he treats me like garbage. I am a sex slave. Remember, I am a sex slave. She probably was just taken from him. She was taken from the household, remember, because the father owns the daughter until the husband marries or catches her as abducts her as his concubine. So she belongs to the father. Women belonged to men back then. They had absolutely no rights. So he was, this Levi, I don't think they give him a name even. The Levite man, whore, goes after, meets the father. The father's probably, I was wondering where you were. I thought you were abducted, because that's what happens all the time to women. So he probably doesn't want to let her go. And so the father, it says for 3 days and nights, the father let the man, they're referring to him as her husband. That's not her husband. She was part of the concubine. The concubine, from what I understand, was the girlfriend's Not the harem was the wives. But anyways, let's not play semantics here. But anyways, the father keeps trying to get the man to stay. I don't think he wants his daughter to go. I think he thinks, well, at least I can protect her while, as long as she's here. Once she leaves, this man's going to treat her like garbage. She's already told me this story. He stole her. He abducted her and raped her. I mean, my God. What more proof do I need? It's a bad situation for her. So it seems like he's keeping, because every day he'll say, why don't you stay here, eat a little bit more. Then he'll say, well, it's pretty late. Why don't you stay another day, sleep, leave early in the morning. And then the next morning he'll do the same thing. Why don't you stay and eat? And then they'll eat and drink and talk and blah, blah, blah. Probably, giving him a lot of alcohol to, make him sleepy. He says, oh, it's late. Why don't you start out tomorrow? And he keeps doing this. I think he wants to keep the daughter there. I think he's like, if she goes with him, he's going to kill her. And she's going to be miserable. What little life she has left before he kills her, she's going to be miserable. So I want to keep her here as long as possible. Well, I think the Levite, the whore Levite, finally says, no, it's like 6 days later. He says, no, it's time. I gotta go. So then he goes to Gibeah, I guess. I don't know how you say that. And he's just sat in the public square with everything. And just basically begging for a place to stay, and nobody was giving him a place to stay. Yeah, some weirdo who hasn't had a shower in a while. We're not going to let him in where we live. I mean, but we're idiots. Then he noticed some dude, and he says, we don't have any place. Nobody's giving us a place to stay. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Excuse me. So the dude says, come, let me provide you all your needs and do not spend the night in the public square. It said he was a traveler, so I'm wondering if maybe he just had a tent or if he was going to a hotel and they were going to share a hotel room. I don't know. Well, it says he led him to his house. I didn't read this. I was kind of zoned out about this when I was listening to it on YouTube. So now I'm reading it again here. Okay, so they took him to his house. So while they were enjoying themselves, probably drinking a lot, these two whores, the men of the city who were corrupt, now what does this sound like? Surrounded the house and beat the door. They said to the old man whose house it was, bring out your guest that we may abuse him. Well, it says we may know him in the King James Version. We don't know now what know means, because know has been used to supposedly mean have sexual intercourse, but then it's also used to mean, just meet a person, and like we do now. Okay, we don't use the word know to mean sex now. It also was used the same way we use it now in the Bible. So I don't know. I mean, people say, oh, that means they want to have sex. I'm saying don't do that. We're not sure of that. I'm trying to get my glasses here. Hold on. So anyway, now in this story, so this is reminding you of Sodom, right? He said, no, my brothers, do not be so wicked. Since the man is my guest, do not commit this crime. Rather, let me bring out my maiden daughter or his concubine. So in other words, you can rape these women instead of raping this man. What? Remember, women were property. They were as chattel. You could do whatever you wanted to do with a woman, and nobody cared, except the women. Ravish them or do whatever you want to them, but against the man you must not commit this wanton crime. Some stranger, he's going to, again, just like in Sodom, the man's going to give his daughter to be gang raped. And you know when it's gang rape like that, they're going to be killed. They're going to die. It's going to be a horrible, slow death. But some stranger dude that I met just a few minutes ago, keep him, don't do anything to him. What? And then he says, when the men would not listen to his host, the husband threw his concubine, this Levite whore, threw his concubine outside so they could gang rape her, and they did all night. And then when the husband rose the next day and opened the door of the house to start out again on his journey, he was just going to leave her there. There lay the woman, his concubine, at the entrance of the house with her hands on the threshold. He said to her, "Come, let us go." But there was no answer, so the man placed her on the ass and started again home. On reaching home, he took a knife to the body of his concubine, cut her into 12 pieces, and sent them throughout the territory of Israel. Everybody saw this, and I mean, this is like Jeffrey Dahmer. Okay, so he gets mad at his wife, or his concubine. They're calling her husband. I'm going to say his girlfriend. He gets mad at his girlfriend for running away from him. So he finds it in his best interest to travel all that way to get her father to take her back. Yet he's just going to throw her out into the street to be gang raped. It's like, what? She obviously wasn't that important to you. Or was he mad at her? This was his revenge on her for leaving an abusive relationship. An obviously abusive relationship. If he's going to throw her out instead of get raped himself, he was going to throw her out to get gang raped. That's an abusive relationship. He has all the power in this system. This is a pyramid scheme where the men are on top. The wealthy men are on top. And everybody else is below to serve that wealthy man. Nothing less has been... Okay, so that's absolutely disgusting. That is just absolutely disgusting. So chapter 20, I can't remember what else happened. Let's see. I think this was basically the fighting between these whores, all these whores, the Levite man, and the Levite, the husband of the murdered woman, testified. He murdered her. He murdered her. He threw her out there to be gang raped. He murdered her. Nobody murdered her but him. My concubine went to... So he's going up to the leaders, who were basically the judges back then, and saying, "Oh, look what they did to me." He threw her out there. He says, "The citizen rose up against me and surrounded the house in which I was. Me they attempted to kill, and my concubine they abused, so she died." He threw her out there to be abused. He can't complain. He wouldn't take it himself. He threw her out there to take it. "So I took my concubine and cut her up and sent her throughout the part of Israel." And this is the redeeming. We're supposed to ignore all this stuff in the Christian. I know what the Christians will say. We're supposed to ignore all this stuff where the whorish men treat the women so badly. And what we're supposed to focus on is that he cut her body up. Ignore that he cut her body up. But he sent the body throughout the 12 tribes of Israel. That's why he cut her up in 12 pieces, supposedly, to send them to the tribe of Israel, throughout one piece to every tribe, to show how bad they were, or how much he was hurt, or something. He did that. He did that to his wife, and he's going to blame everybody. The man's a serial killer, obviously, if he's doing this stuff. We're supposed to ignore all that other stuff and focus on that. And that's what the Christians will tell you. That's what the Christian pastors will tell you. Ignore every horrible thing that the men did to the women. Remember that these horrible people gang raped the woman. Forget that her husband threw her out there to be gang raped. But focus on she was gang raped to death. And that a warning was sent by her her whorish boyfriend to not do this again. Forget that he cut her up into a bunch of pieces like Jeffrey Dahmer. Oh my gosh, this is just so horrible. I cannot just repeat myself over and over again how horrible this was. So anyways, he goes to the leaders. He makes himself look so nice in this story. You know, not I threw my wife out to be my wife. My girlfriend ran away from me because I'm abusive, and I forced her to come back, and then I threw her out to be gang raped by a bunch of men, and then I cut up her body and mailed it to people. I mean, he's not saying that, because that was the truth. He's saying, oh, this was all forced on me. He says, instead of me getting raped, I threw her out to get raped. What a great husband I am. So protective. Okay, so, I don't even want to know what the rest of this said. I was so appalled I didn't even pay attention to what this was. But I think basically what happened, the rulers, most likely they instead of placing blame on this Levite whore for the awfulness he did to his wife or girlfriend, they probably most likely, as everything goes, that the Benjaminites, the ones who raped, and they just say Benjaminites in general. They don't just say the Benjaminites who raped your girlfriend. They say the Benjaminites in general. But anyway, so I guess they said that, you know, you go attack them and kill them or whatever. I don't remember. So they took, let's see where it says, I do remember a little bit of misogyny in here. Well, more misogyny in here, like there wasn't enough. That they took, I think they took all the women. It says they took all the women and made them sex slaves. Or maybe this chapter is chapter 21. Now the men of Israel had sworn to Mitzvah that none of them would give his daughter in marriage to anyone in Benjamin. Oh, that was one of the punishments. No intermarrying between Benjaminites and was it the Levites or whoever? Maybe it was the rest of Israel, the rest of the Jews, that they weren't supposed to marry the Benjaminites. So anyways, but they were saying, the people were saying, the Jewish men were saying, well, who do we give, who do we give our daughters to? What do we do about the wives? Since we have sworn by the Lord not to give them any of our daughters in marriage. What can we do about wives for the survivors, since we have sworn to the Lord not to give any of them our daughters in marriage? And they asked whether any among the tribes of Israel had not come up to the Lord. Oh, blah, blah, blah. What does it, where does it say? 20:21. It says, here it says, I know I'm kind of vague on the story and I'm not really understanding it myself. It says, chapter 21, verse 21. When you see the girls of Shiloh come out to do their dancing, leave the vineyards, and each of you sees one of the girls of Shiloh for a wife, and go to the land of Benjamin. When their fathers or their brothers come to complain. Okay. Did you see what's happening? You abduct the women to take as your wives. You abduct the women to take as your wives. This is rape. This is sex slavery. This is just outright sex slavery. There's no wooing here. There's no talking to parents. There's no saying, I'll give you this if you'll, have sex with me. There's no prostitution going on here. This is absolutely no consent on the side of the woman. So, I don't understand. This is just, It's just absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. The whorishness that the Bible condones for men and women are condemned for any slight. Refusing to have sex, having sex with somebody else in a consensual way. I'm gonna burn this thing when I'm done. This thing right here, it's gonna be burned when I'm done. Good old-fashioned book burning, and I have no problem with burning books, none whatsoever.